God is a loving Father. What I am and how I'm here is because of where the Lord wants me. And knowing that I have a past and everything that I've gone through and everything that I was and everything that I might have done, all of that was for a purpose.
My name is Tyrina. I live in Hopatcong with my husband and my 3 boys. I have a 20-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 6-year-old. I was saved about 5 years ago.
My mom was an immigrant from the Dominican Republic. My father was born here but raised in Cuba. Unbeknownst to me, it was a tumultuous marriage. There was drugs, alcohol, violence. My parents were pretty good about shielding it from us until they got a divorce when I was 5 years old. My mom picked us up and we moved to New Jersey, and she became a single mom. We always had food on the table and clothes on our backs, and my mom made it a point to really just provide for us. She also made it a point to make her vices seem like just things that she did. My mother was a disciplinarian up until we were 12 years old, so when she drank, she was happier. We were able to talk to her. It wasn't a bad thing necessarily. It didn't really dawn on me that my mom had a drinking problem until I was about 12 years old, where she got into a different relationship with a different man, and I believe that's when she started using cocaine. I found myself spending a lot more time outside of the house, so I wouldn't have to be there. Just keeping myself busy in academics. I was a straight A student, I was in the honor roll, I was a cheerleader, I played softball, ran track. I kept myself busy by being with people and mostly being with boys. I lost my virginity very young. I would go from boyfriend to boyfriend to boyfriend and just find my worth and think that I needed to give all of myself to these boys just to get their love in return. And nobody would ever say it to my face, but I knew whether, that I was a slut. In my mind, I was a slut. The reason why I was like that and looking for that type of sexual gratification in boys and things like that was because I had been sexually abused by a cousin that lived with my father at the time. There's a connection between promiscuity and sexual abuse, and that helped me deal with that and helped kind of release the stigma of it. I kept that a secret all my life. I didn't tell anybody that it had happened until I was in a relationship in college with my first son's father. And he was the first person that ever knew that had happened to me.
With the birth of my second child, he's 6 years old now, it was a different type of child rearing for me. To the 20-year-old, I was a single mom. To the 9-year-old, it was our first child with my husband. It was just a new identity. I had been employed or worked since I was like 10 years old, and now all of a sudden I'm just a stay-at-home mom in my head. Didn't really know how to deal with that, not really knowing what my purpose was.
You feel a sense of loss, of who you were, and also there's a disconnect of who you want to be. And postpartum at the time for me really stripped me of my happiness. It stripped me of the joys that you're supposed to have with your child when they're newborn. There's happiness in those moments, but there's such darkness, and it's almost like a cloud over it, and you just can't feel like the joy.
It was hard to breathe, it was hard to move, it was hard to love my kids. Through the grace of God, I was able to start to realize that it was okay to not be great at something. I grew up in a household with a single mom who was just very proud of the things that her daughters accomplished. I didn't think I was good at it.
With finding Christ, I realized that my identity isn't whether I'm a stay-at-home mom or a working mom or anything. It's who I am in Christ. It's being a child of God and knowing that through Him and through His sacrifice, I have salvation, and it's not about what I'm doing here. And it's not about me. It's about Him and what He needs me to do, pretty much. And it gives you a whole sense of purpose. It really does. Like, it was just a cloud had lifted, and this like huge weighted blanket had come off.
When I came to Christ, my husband began to suffer from anxiety and depression. Saw my husband, my spouse, go through something that I had gone through, and I came out on the other side of it. It helped me just be like, wow, that's why I went through what I went through. To be able to love him through it, because my mother had the same issues, but our relationship was strained. There was no grace for her. She was supposed to be a mom. She wasn't supposed to be this broken person. When I went through my postpartum, and then I was able to support my husband through his issues, it translated, why can't I do the same thing for her? Why can't that extend to her? And then I was able to do that. She wasn't going to change. I was the only one that was going to be able to change.
I also believe that during my postpartum, I caught a glimpse of what it was like to suffer. I mean, my mom suffered from depression and anxiety all her life. Being in depression gave me a glimpse of what her whole entire life was about. And the choices that she made brought her to addiction, whereas my choices brought me to the Lord. Why did the Lord choose me out of everybody in my family? And my mom, I remember her telling me that she wants what I'm having. She'd say, oh, there's a pill for that, there's a pill for that. With me, it was like, I want what you have. And what I had was Christ. She still had her vices, she still had her addiction, she struggled every day with it, but she was trying and realizing that, you know, there's more to this life than just what's going on here. And that's when I began to change my perspective with my mother and learn to forgive my mom. If there's somebody that you need to forgive, you know, what are you doing? You can't be taking communion with this stuff in your heart, you know? And I'm like, I have to forgive her.
I just made it a point to be like, you know what? I'm going to call my mom every day. I'm going to tell her I love her every day, and I'm going to talk to her about the Lord. And that's what I did. And it was hard. It was really, really hard. But the reason why I was able to do that was because God had me go through what she went through. All her life, she suffered for something. He only made me go through it for 1 year. And it was enough for me to forgive her for everything. Just forgive her and move on. And we were able to have an amazing relationship where I would talk to her almost every day. And I would tell her that I loved her every day, and she would tell me that she loved me every day. And then about a year ago, a little over a year ago, she died. After about, I want to say, 2 days of binge drinking. You know, you have to deal with, you know, the guilt and just the sadness of not having that person in your life anymore, and then what more could I have done, you know?
God is a loving Father. What I am and how I'm here is because of where the Lord wants me. And knowing that I have a past and everything that I've gone through and everything that I was and everything that I might have done, all of that was for a purpose. I went through so many years of my life where I felt disgusting, I felt dirty, I felt deceitful, I felt disloyal. This God would see me and tell me, your slate is wiped clean. Like, that was crazy for me. When we remember who He is, we remember that we're forgiven. And in order to do that, when we're in the Word, we have to be constantly reminded, constantly being able to feed ourselves and knowing and reminding ourselves, because we forget, we're fickle. We forget, and we forget who we are and how powerful He is. He perfectly orchestrated my life up to this point. Yeah, we're going to go through some stuff, but how is the Lord going to use that? You come to know that, you know, He just wants you to love Him and love everyone else around you. When you can love a person where they're at and they could see Jesus through your eyes, and you could see that reflection, it's something amazing. And so I look for every opportunity to be able to connect with people and just tell a little bit of my story, just so they don't feel alone, because I think that's one of the biggest parts of when you go through something, whether it's postpartum, abuse, loss, you think you're all alone. You think you're the only one that's ever been through it because nobody talks about it, you know? And I think that's one of the things where the Lord wants us to talk about these things and to talk to each other about what He's done to pull us through this. And that's a huge part of my life now. I've made it a point to really try to connect with people and love people where they're at.